Hey, I'm Autoweek motorsports editor Mac Morrison. Special guest today, my man Tony Kanaan. How are you?
Good, and you?
Good, man. Thanks for coming by.
Nice set you have here.
Yeah, thank you.
I like
it's not as nice as your house.
No, not quite.
No, not quite.
My garage, I would
It's about the size of your bathroom.
Right.
Hey, man, so you're the 2004 IndyCar champion. Can you believe the years have gone by, and you've been doing this for what, 15, 16 years
16
now?
years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny that, I was telling you, I remember when I came to the Speedway and I had the veterans teaching me on my rookie year in 2002 how to drive around that place. And yeah, Rubens Barrichello, which is a buddy of mine for many years, 19 years of experience in Formula One, always gave me advices about racing because he's older and more experienced.
Well, you said something off camera that he's now your blank.
Yes,
so.
yes. He needs to listen to me now, so which is funny that over the years I've always went to him to some advice and things that I could have done better in racing and how to improve.
Yeah.
And now I get to tell him everything.
So how's it going for Rubens in IndyCar? I mean, he's done well. He's had top 10 finishes. He's finished every race so far this season. But coming from Formula One and the high performance and high level of competition over there, has it been eye-opening to him just how tough IndyCar is?
Definitely. I think, talking to him, he's enjoying it a lot, but also he's just struggling a little bit with the car. I mean, Formula One to IndyCar, it's a bit different. They had the tire warmers. We never did,
yeah.
So he's struggling to come up to speed a little bit, but he's enjoying it a lot. He has a lot of experience with the carbon brakes, which I don't, so I can feed that off of him. And his biggest challenge right now, it's learning the racetracks. Some of the tracks that we go, we cannot test because they're street courses, so he only gets to know the track on race weekends. And sometimes either the first two races, the first 3 sessions rained.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
So he went straight to qualifying on the dry, and the red tires, which are much softer than the blacks. I mean, he's definitely still getting a grip on it, but he's enjoying it a lot. And obviously, the ovals will be a big challenge for him.
Let's talk a little bit about that new car, the DW12 for this year, because we're talking about some tracks that in the past have frankly produced pretty boring racing. All of a sudden, you guys are passing each other like nobody's business. I mean, Will Power comes from 12th on the grid in Long Beach to the front to win. He comes from 9th or something like that at Barber to win. What is it about the new car that makes it so racy?
I think it's the combination of a lot of things. It's, obviously the new aerodynamics, the engine manufacturers that we have, 3 different engine manufacturers, which creates a little bit of discrepancy in power. Although we have 2, they're very close. Honda and Chevy are pretty close, and Lotus is a little bit behind. But I think the type of, the car that we built, it made more interesting. And I have to say, not just that, but we spent the last 8 years with the same car.
Right.
So eventually, by the time we were,
the gap was like.
It was so small because we were doing some research at the end of last year, and some of the engineers that were changed jobs over the years.
Oh yeah.
5 or 6 teams had switch engineers between themselves, so everybody had everybody set up at some point, and it's the same car, so it was a lot more predictable to what's going to happen. And this year, with everything new, it's like it's taking a lot of the drivers. The new rules with the penalties with the engine. So we all got a penalty in Long Beach for changing engines. If people don't know, if you don't reach 2,000 miles, you get a 10 grid spots. So we had to change engines. So it's making more interesting. So it's pretty cool.
Is it a lot different to drive? Is it more fun to drive?
Not really. It's more fun to drive because it's a turbo engine. I mean,
Yeah.
I always love. I mean, I'm a big fan of turbos. I mean, all my street cars, if they don't come out of factory turbos, I find a way to put one in it. So it's definitely more fun, I have to say. It's not because it's new. It's obviously, Dan developed this car so well. It's lighter. It's futuristic. I mean, it's definitely a lot more fun.
If we're talking about fun, some readers sent in some questions that they wanted to ask you, and I think a really good question is, you've got a ton of experience going back to the old heyday of kart, late 90s. What was the most fun era and most fun to drive chassis engine package in your open wheel career?
Late 90s. I mean, 98, 99, when we used to do 241 miles an hour in Fontana.
Yeah.
Average. you know, at the time, unfortunately, we didn't get to go to the Speedway with those configurations because we had split between kart and IndyCar, but 1,000 horsepower, I mean, that was, for me, it was the most.
Well, then you tested a Formula One car back in 04, I think?
04.
Yeah, for
05.
Okay.
Which is funny enough was Ruben's BAR Honda before he got the job. I tested his car before he had actually driven, and it was another eye-opener. I mean, the difference between an Indy car and the F1 car for the viewers, it's the power. It's pretty similar, but the F1 car is much lighter, so obviously accelerates a lot quicker. We could not beat that light on the tub because we're racing in the ovals, and racing in the ovals, you need more material, more carbon fiber, just in case you have a, you know, a crash. So that, to me, the eye-opener there was obviously the electronics, because they have endless budgets and traction control, ABS. I mean, it was all like, and you know, their budgets were up in the roof, $200 million a year, but we can't afford to do that.
Let me ask you this, for all that technology that, you know, now I'm an F1 fan, we all love Formula One, but for all that stuff, when you're in the cockpit and driving the car on the limit, how big of a difference is there really in terms of performance, and is it really substantially, again, more fun to drive than your Indy car?
Not really. I would say I go the other way around. I think the technology makes it's fun for how amazing it can be. Like you say, how can an engineer control an engine to not spin the wheel, or the brakes not to lock, and the gears to change on their own? That fascinates me. But as far as driving, I still think you're taking away from the driver. You're relying a lot on the technology, and you just really, like, you become a robot. You just turn left and right, and you press buttons. To me, that it loses a bit, but that goes back to the old style of racing, I guess. Being older, that I like that stuff. But some of the stuff, I love it. I love the pedal shifting. I love how quick the response of the engine. But when I drove the car, for instance, I would go down the straightaway. Before I reached the corner, I could just click the gears that I wanted it to downshift. So if I was in 7th, and I'll click 5 times, I'll be down to 2nd, and I would press a button and would downshift on their own.
Just skip,
In the middle of the straightaway, flat out, I would just press the downshift lever, press the button, and it will downshift on its own when it got to the corner. So
that's crazy.
It is crazy. It's fun, but you know, at the end of the day, you wanna be able to have the ability to do that, because somebody that has more talent than you.
Again, you're old enough to remember the days when you actually had to heel toe and match revs and shift gear yourself.
And I still, you know, nowadays I still drive stick shift cars to be able to do that, because nowadays we have 2 pedals in the car only. With the pedal shifting, our engines blip on their own. So you just like go through the gears, and they, you know, back in the days, you remember having to have your right foot, and so I enjoy it. I still do that just because I don't want to lose it.
You actually had some bad luck in Detroit, I think back in what, 99 or so, you broke your wrist?
It's funny, because my first race here in 96, I won in Indy Lights. My second race here in 97, I won. And then 98, I had a crash. 99, I didn't do well. In 2000, that's when I really got the accident. And I broke my arm, 7 ribs, and I got a concussion, so I was out for 3 months. Then the following, I recovered that. The following year I came back, and I hit it in the same place, and I got another concussion, and I didn't race. So then we stopped coming here. And then the year that we came back, I won the race. So
you're looking forward to getting back on top this year
for sure.
on the Belle Isle street circuit.
For sure. I mean, the track, they made a lot of improvements. I think when you talk to Roger Penske's organizing something, you don't expect anything less than first class. So I know they made a lot of improvements. Happy that Chevrolet's back in IndyCar. So Detroit is the motor city. You cannot race in Detroit if you. And this is my opinion. Even when I was a little kid, talking about American cars, you would talk about where they're being made and then created in Detroit. So to me, it's going to be fun, and I'm glad to come back.
Speaking of Detroit, speaking of Chevrolet, some good news, dude. You got to win the Indy 500 for bigger reasons than this. But hey, I mean, you get a ZR1 this year if you win this sucker.
I mean, that's a pretty good motive. let alone how much
yeah,
I want to
forget about the
win.
$2 million
Yeah.
with that free car.
And you know, and all the dream as a little kid to win the 500. But I mean, I have to say this is one of, not because I'm racing for Chevy now, but I couldn't say it before, but it's always the Corvette since I was a little kid. It's been the car that I wanted it to have.
Really?
Yeah, it's just like, obviously, there was, as a race car driver, I won every single one of them, as you know, some of us.
Yeah, yeah.
I have friends that have all of them. We have friends that have all of them, but...
hey, we want them all, too.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you guys get to drive all of them, at least.
That's true. Yeah.
But there was a Ferrari and then a Corvette, and no, the zero one just looks so nice. And
have you driven that thing?
No, not yet.
It's frightening.
But you know, I promised myself when I hadn't done it up until now. So then when I knew that that was going to be the pace car, I said I won't drive it until I win it.
Indianapolis, you have got to have a love-hate relationship with to some degree. You've led a ton of laps. You've won the pole. You finished second. But, man, you've also had some scary, bad luck, but some scary crashes. The one in, was it 09?
09.
When the car broke going into
turn 3.
We lost the
suspension.
I mean, that was a big hit. Is it
that was
driving
the biggest hit I've ever had.
Yeah, because what was that, over 100 Gs?
Yeah, it was 85 Gs, but it was we hit the wall at 180 miles an hour.
That sounds really fun.
Yeah, it was not.
Do you kind of look at the speedway? And God, I hate to bring this up to make this analogy, but people are kind of starting to whisper, is TK going to be Michael Andretti of this era? And I don't know if your luck has been quite as bad as Michael's, but it is the big one. And maybe what it shows is, even for the most talented drivers, just how difficult it is to be the last guy standing in a 500-mile race at the Speedway.
It is, and you know what? I have to say, if I would be remembered by, and compared to Michael Andretti, I wouldn't be sad. You know, it was a guy that was really successful. Now, do I want to win the 500? Yes. But in my mind, the other day I was having this conversation with a friend of mine, and I said, look, to me, as a race car driver, I really want to win bad. I know it's the race to win. But if you think about, if I look back and say, all right, every time I've been there, I was in the contention to win the race. I wasn't just one more participant in the race that I started at 23rd and I finished. I knew I had the chance. For some reason or another, I didn't. So to me, that it's easier on myself. So I would say, you know, if I never win it, I'll be fine. I'll be fine because I think that place, I still love that place. I don't hate the place. And I always said that place is going to pick who's going to win, not the other way around. So, you know, it is what it is. I might get a win, I might not.
You know, is it a big challenge going to Indy with that being the first super speedway or first oval of any kind on the schedule with the new car?
Big time. Big time, I think. And then I said that before. I think this year it's more open for anybody to win because it's unknown. Those cars, I mean, we've driven 500 miles, but not in a full race distance. We've done 200, you stop, you rebuild, you do that.
Yeah.
So never done in an oval. We haven't ran this configuration, so nobody knows what to expect. And preparation will be the key because I think mechanical failures are going to cost a lot more. And the smartest drivers that can save the car because we don't know how they're going to last will win this race.
Speaking of the preparation, I've got one of these is a reader question. Do you train differently for ovals and super speedway races than you do going into street and road courses, or is your routine kind of...
No, physically, no. Mentally, yes. I mean, physically, you just train to be able to drive the race car. I know you're not. It's actually not as physical as a street course like we go to Detroit, but mentally you have to shift your mentality completely.
So what does that mean?
More focus, more patience, and you got to be more aware of things that are going around you because it's hard to explain, but things happen slower, but you're actually going a lot quicker.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like it doesn't match. So it
just kind of slows down
a lot, and then you don't realize that, and that's when it can catch you.
You realize it though when you're spinning.
Well, when you spin and you hit the wall at 180 miles an hour, you realize you're going pretty fast.
If you play basketball, You can just go down the street and go to the gym and shoot some baskets. You go out in the driveway, you know, anything. But if you're a race car driver, it's very expensive. You know, even for all your money, man. It's like you don't own your own IndyCar team, and you can go out all week. So how do you stay sharp when, you know, there's limited testing between races? There's a fairly long off season. How do you just jump back in a race car and be right on the limit again?
It's tough, but what we do, actually, we go karting. The go-karting is, obviously, you're going to go, you only go at 100 miles an hour instead of 200, but the reflex, it's a lot quicker in a go-kart than actually it is on the race car. So go-karting is the best workout. And I love triathlons. I do a lot of things to keep my mind focused. You got to train your mind as well, not just your body. But it is weird when you stop, you know, you finish your last race in October and you do not jump on the race car, on your actual race car, until February.
Right.
It's really weird. So if I tell you you're going to take 6 months off the office being the editor and you're going to come back and you have to write an article, you're going to be a little rough in the beginning.
I forget how to read, by the way.
So the first day, it's always tough. It's always, but go-karting is the best, you know, workout.
Hey, last question. Autoweek's IndyCar correspondent, your probably least favorite person on the planet, Kurt Cavan, told me, and I don't know the answer to this question. He wouldn't tell me. I'm supposed to ask you, what are you going to say in victory lane when you win the Indy 500?
Here we go. You know, Kurt Cavan is obviously a very not very well-known reporter in Indianapolis. Right. So there is a love and hate relationship between a lot of people and them. But I really personally get along with him pretty well. But one year, he didn't pick me as one of the favorites. And I happened to read the Indianapolis Star, and I said, don't worry, man. I'll still make you famous. And when I win the 500, first thing I want to say, I'm going to give a shout out to Kurt Cavan, and he will be extremely famous.
Never, ever do that under any circumstances.
No, if I win, I will have to, because it's been going on for 5 years now. And then he got a Twitter account before I did. And the day that I got my Twitter account, I said, in 3 days, I will pass all your followers and double it. And actually, in 1 day, I had 3 times more followers than he did. So I got to help the guy out.
All right, brother. It's good to see you, Tony Kanaan.
Thank you
for coming by. I'm Autoweek Motorsports editor Mac Morrison. Check out AutoweekRacing.com to stay up to speed on all the season's action. Thanks a lot.
Catch all the latest auto enthusiast news at Autoweek.com, in Autoweek Magazine and iPad Edition. Talk with us on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter at Autoweek USA.